Hello there. Greetings, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me. I have to apologize. I'd like to apologize from the beginning, saying I really didn't want to have to do this particular video wearing the headphones and the microphone again. But unfortunately, it's very early on a Saturday morning, and I live in an apartment downstairs, and the natives are getting restless upstairs. So this helps to drown out some of their noise. That's why I'm using this. So I'm here to talk about the extra features that are on the new Beatles Revolver 2022 box set. We're talking about CDs here that I listen to, talking about sessions 1 and also sessions 2. And I have notes here that I'll be referring to. And let me tell you, I was a little half and half and lukewarm on the actual new stereo mix that I heard of the album itself. I have not yet heard the mono mix. I think I'm going to enjoy the mono mix better, but I haven't heard that yet. But I am very, very happy with these. This is going to be a pretty, I think, enthusiastic overall review. I think that this is worth it alone for the extras. Usually, when one of these titles comes out, I'm very much interested in the bonus features, the extras. Those are what really, really excite me as a longtime Beatles fan that likes to hear something different, instead of always the usual stuff. So I'm going to go through these. Excuse me, starting with disc 1 or sessions 1. And here on the CD, we have the disc thusly, sessions 1. All right, starting off, we get take 1 of Tomorrow Never Knows. Now, from time to time, I'll be referring to the Beatles anthology series because actually it's been a long time since I heard the Beatles anthology, and I don't remember everything verbatim that's on those. So I don't know how much of this necessarily is brand new to us, how much of this has been on bootlegs over the decades. Um, I know that this one, Take 1 of Tomorrow Never Knows, when the song was called either Mark 1 or The Void. I know that we've heard this before. I know was on Anthology, and it's really entertaining. It's the slower version when they're first finding the way for this, with Ringo really doing really impressive little drum rolly things that I like. This version, it may be a tad longer. I'm not sure. This is the genesis of the finished version. Very entertaining. Not really new to my ears, but the way I feel about this collection is you want to have everything concise and together. If this is indeed a Revolver package, then what you want is to have everything under one roof, so to speak. Sure, we have all kinds of other unofficial recordings, records, bootlegs, CDs, but to have them just strewn about on Unsurpassed Masters volumes 5 and 7 and so forth, good to have it all here in a Revolver package. All right, so that's track 1. Track 2 is kind of a highlight for me. I love it. It's Tomorrow Never Knows, the mono mix, RM11, and this is really, really nice. This is John's voice being very prominent this time, and the tape loops we're so used to hearing in history over the years really sound extra eerie and creepy, and they accommodate the song really nicely. So I love that. Number 3, we get Gotta Get You Into My Life, first version, take 5. There's great dialogue at the beginning of this track that I really appreciated. Uh, kind of working together, teamwork. You even get to hear Ringo in there. I'm not sure if this version is on Anthology. I think it may be this particular version, but it's more laid back version earlier. There are extra harmonies from the other Beatles. No horns yet, no brass or anything, but I like the difference in having the extra harmonies from the Beatles helping out with Paul. Number 4, we have "Got to Get You Into My Life" second version, and this is closer to the released version that we've been used to hearing since 1966. Great drums. I mean, the drums are so up there and so pronounced, and you can really appreciate them and feel them and hear them. No horns yet in this, but that's quite enjoyable. Then you have "Gotta Get You Into My Life," second version, take 8. This is a backing track. When I say backing track, talking basically, uh, instrumental. Basically, it's the version we're used to hearing. Now it's got the horns added to it, and it gives a unique new perspective. I mean, I've heard this before as well, but I like that it's different. I don't usually appreciate as much listening to backing instrumental tracks. I figure, it's just really the finished recording without the vocals. Who cares? But sometimes, depending on the presentation, it can really give a unique perspective and feel like it's its own entity. And that's how I feel with this one. Got to Get You Into My Life. It's like a whole new experience listening to just the backing, I think. So I like that quite a bit. Next, we have an interesting item, which to my ears anyway, I've not heard this before. This is George Harrison's Love You Too. They call it Take One, but to me, it's more like a George Harrison demo because you have George strumming guitar with a crude but fascinating vocal. Pretty sure it's new, not on Anthology, I don't believe. That was really a good treat. Now we stick with the song Love You Too for the next track. This is called Love You Too Unnumbered Rehearsal. And it's just the Indian instruments and kind of perfecting it, laying it down, getting it right. And that's it. That's interesting. Kind of short but sweet appreciation for that. Then we have Love You Too, Take 7, which is mostly the finished version, but intriguing for the added backing harmonies. It sounds like kind of what we're used to hearing, the version we've known all these years. However, I do appreciate the fact that you get to hear on this one, along with George, some just harmonies singing along at intervals, which I think it's kind of interesting. Next, we have Paperback Rider. Paperback Rider takes 1 and 2, really. This is not really a big deal to me. I've heard this before. The backing tracks, instruments only. I've heard this for years, so it wasn't really any kind of revelation. I've heard it before, personally. But still, within the whole entire package, to have it all together here in order, very nice. Then we have the song Rain, the John Lennon song. Now, this is interesting. Rain, take 5, actual speed. And when I say actual speed, I'm talking about it's much faster. It's much faster than what we're used to hearing. I believe that it was always recorded with the intention to slow it down eventually, quite possibly. And now, what I want to mention about Rain, take 5, fast version, actual speed, Ringo Starr has always gone on record for many years. Every time he's asked, "What's your favorite Beatles song?" he always says, "Rain." And when asked why, he always says because he loved his own drumming on that. He feels he never played that great before or since. He thinks it just worked and captured the moment. Anyone who thinks Ringo's overrated, doesn't get Ringo, I have to say this should change a lot of people's minds. Listen to the fast actual speed version of Rain before they slowed it down. Ringo has always said he was kind of possessed. He kind of like doesn't know what came over him. He really never played quite like that before or since. And you can hear it. Wild drums, really good job by Ringo. That's the highlight of it. Then after that, we get Rain, take 5, slowed down, and the song Rain is then the song that we have not known since 1966 on the single. Now, I find it incredible to listen to just for John Lennon's vocal by itself. It's up front, prominent, very good, and you get to just hear John with no harmonies added yet. So it's the regular, lower, slower speed version. All right, now the next one surprised me as something I really, really enjoyed a lot, and I didn't expect to. But It's Dr. Robert. Okay, a lot of people just ignore Dr. Robert. Never, it's one of those Beatle cuts that, yeah, it's just kind of there. I have a new appreciation for Dr. Robert after listening to this new release, definitely, and in particular this take seven. For me, it's a highlight again. Um, you know, One thing that I have to stop and say I really appreciated from listening to kind of the new mix of the proper album, but also these bonus features. We listen to Revolver all these years, all these decades, and we think, oh, yeah, it's the Beatles' Revolver album. Sure, we're used to Revolver. We know Revolver. It's Revolver. It's great. Else is there to say? And you take for granted sometimes, or I do, how really innovative and how game changing this album was at the time. This is really the point where the Beatles are changing. A lot of people like to say Rubber Soul was where the Beatles were changing. I personally don't think it's that much so. I think that with Revolver, that's when they really, really start experimenting beyond belief. And it's hard to believe that when you listen to these outtakes, this is the same band that only 3 short years previously was singing "She Loves You" and "I Want to Hold Your Hand." That's really hard to believe. This is so impressive for 3 years growth and innovation. It's just incredible. So, Dr. Robert, well, it's a highlight on this bonus disc. I love the clear, sharp vocals from both John and Paul accompanying him together. They sound terrific together. And that part that sounds so trippy, the well, 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 you're feeling fine. La di da, that part. It's more intense here. It's intense, and I think later on there's a singing of it that we haven't heard before on the regular track. I just love the added parts. It seems like they really really intensify it, and you can hear more sounds on it that you hadn't heard before. I really love Dr. Robert Take Seven. All right. Now, one of my favorite tracks comes next, And Your Bird Can Sing. This is the song that's going to close the first disc. And Your Bird Can Sing. They call this first version take two. There's two versions of it. Now, it's a great version. It's nice to hear them first putting it down and still working on it. Um, and the only thing is, one version is the kind of plain version. Then the second version is a version which I particularly can't stand. It was on Anthology. I hated it then and I hate it now. It's called the giggling version, where the Beatles sound like they've had, I don't know, one too many pills or snorts and just really getting stupid and giddy and silly. I don't mind Beatles humor. Part of loving the Beatles is that they're humorous and they always joke around and stuff together and have a good rapport with each other. But I just hate the giggling version of this. So it's basically And Your Bird Can Sing with no giggling, and then And Your Bird Can Sing with giggling. And that's how we kind of leave off on disc one. I'm going to flip the notes over for disc two. Now we go over to sessions two, which is in this here. All right. Okay. Really gave me a new appreciation, as I said, for Revolver. I mean, Revolver may be their best album right now. These days, everybody's saying Revolver. That's the Beatles' masterpiece. That's their number one album. And I don't know. I change on that. Is it Pepper? Is it Revolver? Is it Abbey Road? Is it the White Album? But really, this gave me a real new appreciation for Revolver as the pinnacle of the Beatles' powers. You got Paul McCartney doing his thing with all his great songs on here. In a lot of ways, people say Paul dominates the album, but John is right there with all his trippy and clever psychedelic songs, and George with a couple of songs three songs that shine. So, wow. And Ringo has a track too. All right, let's go. Disc two. We start off with another version of And Your Bird Can Sing. This is called Second Version Take 5. Another highlight for me. Uh, Great John vocal. Sorry, the sun is coming in now. Hope it doesn't ruin the picture. Uh, anyway, great John vocal on this. Ringo really adding drum flourishes. You hear Ringo really being creative on the drums. And the Beatles trying some ahs in it, trying to add ah in it, which is is interesting. They didn't need it in the finished version, but it's nice to have it here for interest. The next track is a track I can't stand. I've heard this before, maybe on Anthology. I don't like it. It's a version of Taxman, Taxman Take 11, which basically sounds a lot like the finished track we're used to, except they have that really cringy part where they try to do the bit. Anybody got a bit of money? Anybody got a bit of money? Anybody got a bit of money? Vomit inducing. I can't stand that. Let's move on. All right. Next we have this part's a little dull to me. I think I like disc one better than disc two overall. Uh, in part two, this disc we have I'm Only Sleeping. One, two, three, several, four versions of this. I don't know, something like that. One, two, three. I mean, I'm Only Sleeping. I like the track on the album, but I've heard these before. We have a rehearsal fragment, which is an instrumental, very short. And then we get I'm Only Sleeping, takes 2 and 5, heard them before. Early attempts from John. Some interesting banter in between. I like interesting banter, interesting dialogue. You get a little of that. Then you have I'm Only Sleeping, a mono mix RM1, which sounds good, as it's what it says, a mono mix, and quite strong and enjoyable. But, that to me, it's a little bit of a lull in the disc, listening to these I'm Only Sleeping evolutions. Eleanor Rigby is next, track 7. It says Eleanor Rigby's speech before take two. Now, there's interesting dialogue and talk here between George Martin and Paul McCartney, and I think also other voices I don't know, other musicians maybe. What they're doing here is they're trying to get the orchestration down for Eleanor Rigby, and again, I don't usually care when they do that, when they have just the backing track, just the music. But I have to tell you, this is really interesting and intriguing. It's fascinating to listen to just the orchestration. Even my girlfriend, who happened to listen to this one with me, said that was interesting. Yeah, well, she's interested in music and classical music. Next, we have For No One, Take 10, which is a backing track. Again, it's nice. It gives a different experience just listening to the backing track of For No One. And I enjoyed it. But now I'm going to come down to what is really maybe the number one moment for these bonus tracks, and historically very important. And I'm talking about Yellow Submarine. A lot of people don't like Yellow Submarine, but they call it, it's a kiddie song and so forth. But what's fascinating here is we have what's called the songwriting work tapes, one and two different versions. And it's basically John Lennon. We thought this was mostly Paul McCartney. I think over the years we thought it was mostly Paul, but now we're learning from this that John had a big hand in writing this, and it starts out with the beginning part where it's very slow and it's very somber. It's sad and somber. It's the roots of the song where he's singing in the place where I came from. No one cared. No one cared. And that's the beginning of it. It's kind of a downer. Uh, and it's an amazing treasure to hear that, to hear John working on this. And then it kind of evolves a little more into where you hear a great conversation between Paul and John. And from what I remember, it seems like Paul is apparently urging John to do the vocal. He says, you know it, something like that. So John is singing the song, his early version, that's kind of mellow and somber, and he's singing that bit about in the town where I came from, no one cared, no one cared. And but then he winds up getting into the yellow submarine. We all live in a yellow submarine, and we sailed to sea and stuff. It becomes Yellow Submarine. That is the most amazing nugget on these outtakes, and it gets more fleshed out, and they start singing the We All Live in a Yellow Submarine bit. Finally, we wind up getting Ringo's version. Ringo ultimately, as we know, came to sing the track and made it his own. We have a version here, a take 4, Yellow Submarine, before sound effects were added. And it's basically Ringo. Then we have the version, it says Yellow Submarine with highlighted sound effects. You get more. The sound effects are more brought up, more pronounced than the finished version that we're used to. A little too much, but you get a Ringo spoken intro. We've heard this before as well. This has been issued before. Ringo speaks an intro, which you didn't really need. Again, wonderful to have it here for posterity, but we did. I don't think it needed it in the end, and that takes care of Yellow Submarine, the evolution of Yellow Submarine. Then we have George's song, I Want to Tell You, Take 4. It's the backing track again, just the instrumentals where you really get to appreciate Ringo's drumming on it. Very, very heavy drumming, but you don't appreciate it for long because it's intriguing while it lasts, but it's short. It's very short. I think it's a breakdown. You don't get to hear the whole thing, and that's unfortunate. But it's there anyway to have. Then we get take 6 of Here, There, and Everywhere. A different Paul vocal. This is one I've heard before. It's not anything exciting to me, nothing new. Been here, done that. Here, There, Everywhere, Paul vocal. Different. Then we go to She Said, and this is a John Lennon demo that we've heard before. In 1988, there was the radio show, The Lost Lennon Tapes. And on the Lost Lennon Tapes, they highlighted all kinds of John demos, cassettes, and versions he did earlier. And I'm glad it's included here. It was included here for posterity to fill out the tracks on Revolver. And yeah, it's got funny lines in there that some of you, if you haven't heard, and you're making me feel like my trousers are torn, and stuff like that. So it's really, really fun to hear that early version. And then finally, the disc and the bonuses conclude with She Said, Take 15, backing track rehearsal. It's an awesome version. Again, Ringo is bashing those skins away, and at least we get to hear Ringo's great cymbal crashes all over the place on this. She said, with the cymbals crashing, smash, 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 which I said in my video, which you can watch on. I was talking about the new mix 2022 by Giles Martin. The cymbal crashes are gone. They're so low in the mix you don't even, if you didn't know they were there, you wouldn't even know it, and that's obscene. But other than that, yeah, very happy overall with these folks. Uh, really think you need to listen to all these and to own all these if you're a diehard fan. I don't know. Um, the different versions that are out there. Single disc version, 2 disc version, da la di da di da. Maybe you get some of these, not all of them. You gotta have all of them. Gotta have all of them. Make sure you get all of them. Thank you, folks, and please subscribe if you have not. Hit the bell so you get notifications when I'm on live, when I do new videos. Also, check out the series I'm doing lately. I've done a lot of videos on Revolver. Just go to my channel and scroll back a few, and you will see all kinds of stuff on Revolver. And I'm going to make an announcement here. I'm going to be doing a Fab Gab show. I have a show called Fab Gab, and that show is going to be Sunday night, and it's going to be I think it's the 30th, Sunday the 30th. Am I right? I got the dates right? Sunday the 30th at 9 p.m. Eastern Time, live. It's going to have a few friends on here, and we're going to talk about everything Revolver. We're going to talk about the new mix. We're going to talk about these bonus tracks again. I have a couple of guests on there with me, and there'll be surprise guests. Check it out. That's tomorrow or Sunday the 30th of October, 9 p.m. Eastern. Thank you all. Enjoy your Revolver.